If you're burned out and your first instinct is to update your resume, pause, stop. Because there's a good chance you're not about to solve the problem. You're about to relocate it. New company, new boss, new title, same exhaustion. This is the mistake I see high-achieving professionals make constantly. They hear burnout and they think quit. However, burnout isn't a quit signal, it's a pivot signal. And a lot of the time, it's telling you something deeper. You've lost connection with yourself, not your work ethic, not your ambition. Skip that part and you can land the better job and still wake up 6 months later feeling exactly the same. So in this video, I'll walk you through the 3 stages every burned out professional needs before making their next career move. First one is decompress, second is reconnect, third is pivot. Because the goal isn't just to escape your current job, it's to build a career you don't have to keep recovering from. Let's dive in. Okay, let's start with the first stage. Honestly, it's the hardest one for high performers. When successful people burn out, their instinct is to push harder, read another book, apply to more jobs, do something, anything to fix it. But here's the reality. You can't sprint your way out of exhaustion or out-hustle burnout. The very behaviors that created it are often the same ones people use to try and fix it. Like putting out a fire with a flamethrower. Let's be honest, most of us were taught rest is something you earn. Work hard, then rest. However, burnout flips that equation. And let me be clear, I'm not saying disappear into a cabin for 6 months. Really, the amount of recovery you need depends on your situation. Some can take weeks off, some have mortgages and families and need to keep working. Both are fine. The point isn't how much time you have, it's becoming intentional about recovery. Because burnout isn't just mental, it's physical, emotional, nervous system fatigue. You've been running hot for so long, your system is basically waving a white flag. I know this because I've done it myself. Not long ago, I felt myself sliding towards burnout again. I was stressed, overcommitted, not sleeping, losing motivation. My first instinct was the same one I'd had 100 times. Push harder, get through it, keep moving. Instead, I hit pause. I stepped away from non-essential commitments, simplified, and doubled down on recovery. More sleep, more walks, more time outside, a lot less guilt about it. Nothing magical happened overnight, but little by little, I started feeling like myself again. This is the mistake so many professionals make. They think recovery is a reward. It's actually part of the solution. Think about an elite athlete. If they pulled a muscle, nobody says, you know what you need? More sprints. Instead, they recover, rebuild, then return stronger. Burnout works the same way. The goal is create enough space for your mind and body to catch up with each other. A long weekend, daily walks, saying no to a few things, or just sitting on the porch with coffee and no agenda. The activity matters less than the outcome. Recharge your energy, calm your nervous system, feel human again. Here's the truth. You don't need to figure out the rest of your career while you're exhausted. Your only job right now is recovery. And once that fog starts lifting, you begin hearing yourself again. So hit pause for a second and answer this question. What will you do today to rest and recover? Pick one action and commit to it before the day ends. And that's where stage 2 begins. This is where the real work begins. Once the noise settles down, a bigger question shows up. Not what job should I do next, but who have I become? Most professionals spend years climbing, promotions, raises, more responsibility, and stop checking whether the ladder is even leaning against the right wall. Then burnout arrives, forcing questions they've avoided for years, such as, what do I actually want? What gives me energy instead of draining it? This is where most people get stuck. They're asking the wrong question. What job should I do? Instead of what made me come alive before I started living everyone else's definition of success. This shows up throughout decades of research on fulfillment and motivation. Meaningful work emerges when our strengths, values, and contribution align, not when we chase the next title or paycheck. That's a conversation that actually changes careers. One of the most powerful exercises I use with clients is asking them to look backward, not forward. For example, tell me about a time you felt energized, a project you loved, a day where work felt meaningful. What were you doing? Who were you helping? What strengths were you using? because buried inside those moments are clues about who you are at your best. This hit hard for me. When I experienced burnout, I thought I needed a better company, different circumstances. However, what I eventually discovered was much deeper. I'd spent years building a career that no longer matched who I was becoming. Painful, but also freeing. The problem isn't that you're broken, it's that you've outgrown something, a very different challenge. Real quick, if this is landing for you and you're realizing maybe I don't need a new job, maybe I need a new vision, I made something to help. It's called the Career Vision Toolkit. Because one of the hardest parts of burnout isn't just being tired, it's losing the ability to imagine a future that actually feels like you. So I put the toolkit inside my free community, where you can start working through it and reconnect with what matters before you rush into another role that repeats the same problem. The link to join is down in the description. Join the free community, grab the Career Vision Toolkit, and start getting clear on your next chapter that you actually want to build. Because sometimes the first step isn't updating your resume, it's remembering who you are becoming. Okay, let's keep going. All right, once you've recovered energy and reconnected with what matters, it's time to pivot. This is where most people make another mistake. They think a pivot means quit, apply, hope, repeat. That's not a pivot, that's relocation. Same patterns, new zip code, same outcome. A real pivot isn't a demolition either. You don't need to blow up 20 years of experience and start over. It's the same skills aimed at a more aligned direction. Here's the belief shift. A meaningful career isn't found, it's designed. One of my favorite books on career change is Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. Their research challenges the idea of one perfect career waiting for you. Instead, there are multiple versions of your future that could make you happy and successful. That removes so much pressure. You don't have to find the right answer. You just need to explore possibilities. So instead of asking, what job should I do next? Ask, what are 3 possible futures I could experiment with? Maybe one path keeps you in your current field. Maybe another takes your strengths into a different industry. Maybe a third is consulting, teaching, or building something of your own. The goal isn't certainty, it's exploration. Here's another powerful idea. In The Startup of You, Reid Hoffman talks about building your career the way entrepreneurs build companies, through small experiments, not giant leaps. An informational interview, a side project, a certification, a conversation with someone doing work you're curious about, things like that. You don't have to bet your entire future on one decision. You can test your way forward. One more concept worth knowing. In the book, The Big Leap, Gay Hendricks talks about your zone of genius. Work that combines what you're exceptionally good at, what creates value for others, and what gives you energy. When I work with burned out professionals, this is often what we discover. They haven't lost their ability. They've lost their connection to the work that brings them alive and spent years operating outside their zone of genius. No wonder they're exhausted. So before you ask, what job should I pursue? Instead ask, when am I at my best? What energizes me? What problems do I genuinely enjoy solving? Those answers point toward your next chapter. Because a pivot isn't about escaping your old career. It's about intentionally designing a future that's aligned with who you are now, using everything you've already built. And once you start doing that, everything begins to change. Okay, there's this old story about 3 bricklayers. Someone asked the first what he's doing. He says, I'm laying bricks. They ask the second. He says, I'm building a church. They ask the third, and he says, I'm building the house of God. Same work, different meaning. And that meaning changes everything. When your work feels connected to something bigger than a paycheck, you're more resilient, more engaged, and far more likely to find fulfillment and ultimately success. That's why 2 people can hold the exact same role. One feels trapped, the other feels fulfilled. The difference isn't the work, it's the meaning attached to it. And that's exactly what burnout reveals. Not that you're in the wrong career, but that you've lost connection with your values, your strengths, your purpose. Work starts feeling meaningful again, not because everything becomes perfect, but because everything becomes aligned. If burnout taught me anything, it's this. The goal isn't finding work that pays you. The goal is finding work that fits you. Burnout isn't always a sign that you're broken. Sometimes it's a signal that the version of success you've been chasing no longer belongs to the person you're becoming. And when that happens, don't rush to find the next job. Slow down long enough to find yourself first. Create space, reconnect, and then pivot. Then move forward from a place of clarity instead of panic, because you have more power than you think, and your next chapter doesn't have to look like your last one. If this video felt uncomfortably familiar, like I was describing the season you're in right now, I want you to hear this. You're not behind, you're not broken, and you don't have to make your next career move from panic. But you do need clarity before you make another big decision. So here are 2 next steps. If you want to start on your own, join my free community using the link in the description. Inside, you'll get access to the Career Vision Toolkit for free, so you can reconnect with what matters, clarify what you want next, and begin building a career vision that actually fits who you're becoming. And if you're actively job searching, recovering from burnout, or trying to reposition yourself for a career pivot, I'm also offering a free job search strategy and positioning review call. On that call, we'll look at where you are right now, what's not working in your search and positioning, and what your next best move could look like. Both links are in the video description. Don't rush into the next version of the same exhaustion. Get clear first, then move. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.